Hi, everyone.
Hello, welcome to the
Yes,
podcast.
yes. Welcome back. Welcome for the first time. I'm Pam.
I'm Mari-Lyn.
Yes,
Glad you joined us.
yes. For those of you who don't know who we are spiritual and metaphysical practitioners, teachers, etc., etc. Our podcasts are more on the spiritual.
Yes?
We also have this is the Conscious Spirit podcast. We also have this on, so we have it on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app.
Yep.
And then we have another YouTube channel, TCS Everyday Psychics, and that's all paranormal stuff. We
Yes.
are paranormal mediums. And so we
We
just
are.
started a new series that we've been waiting to do for so long. And I'm really so proud of us. And we're
I
showing.
am too.
Yes, we don't just tell you what's going on. We clear it out. We don't believe
Yes,
in
we do.
living with paranormal, all of that stuff. So anyway, that's that channel if you have any interest in the paranormal. If not, that's okay too. And I am totally bypassing. Here we
Yes, you are. You are totally bypassing, but that's okay. I want to
Yeah.
add to not only is this a spiritual channel, but this is also spiritual and healing.
Oh, lots of healing.
Lots and lots of healing. And
Because
the
that's what the
reason Pam
spiritual journey's about.
Yes, it is.
Okay, go ahead.
Absolutely. Okay. So the reason Pam's bypassing, I'm gonna
Yep.
call her out,
sister.
throw her under the bus, whatever you want
Do
to
it,
call it.
sister.
We're talking about vulnerability today.
Yeah.
And Pam has a difficult time with vulnerability.
Yes.
Me, for some strange reason,
Does not.
I embrace vulnerability.
Yes.
And
Yes. Yes.
I want to say the reason for that is that at one point in my life, and this was definitely true during my active alcoholism,
Mhm.
that I used vulnerability as my ego used vulnerability
Yes.
as attention seeking.
Mhm.
I used it for approval in in a disapproving way.
Yeah.
Because I would be vulnerable about how awful I was.
Mhm.
My
Yes.
vulnerabilities were all about how horrible I was, how bad I am.
And that self-deprecating
Yes,
thing. Yeah.
yes. That is not the best way to be vulnerable.
That's more so okay. So Marilyn and I and a couple select people, we get together once a week and we meditate. We do guided meditations. I'm the one who guides the meditations typically. And I don't always follow along with the meditations. Well, that's not true. I'm going to say that in a different way. I receive them often in a different way. So I'm
Right.
doing the meditation. They're all channeled. It's always different. Never know what's coming, but it's always what's best for everyone. And sometimes what happens is I'm so into that channel and giving the information, I don't get my personal information until later that evening. Some meditations, I get smacked in the head with it at the same time everyone else does. And that was no different. And that's what happened on Sunday. Okay, this is hard.
A little vulnerable there.
A little vulnerable.
You're fine. You are perfectly fine. Yeah. You're safe.
Thank you. I have so much trauma from my childhood being vulnerable. I learned to protect myself by not being vulnerable. I come from a very large family. There's a lot of trauma there. Many of you know, well, I've talked about a little bit. I had a mentally ill mother. Both my parents were alcoholics. So I'm the youngest of six. It was a crazy home, very chaotic.
I'm the youngest of three. I can't imagine
Yeah.
having two more
Yes.
in that mix.
Yeah.
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 I
It
just
was,
can't.
for me, being in a large family was not a great thing. I hear some people say they came from a large family and it was wonderful. And I so envy that. And I, not envy in a bad way, but I so beautiful. That was not my experience. So being vulnerable is very hard for me. I'm also getting, those of you who have watched our paranormal channel know that I'm not the mushy one. Mari-Lyn is, and and that's not my job in those situations. I typically, the more nasty spirits, those entities that want to do harm, those are the ones that I'm geared toward. And I'm sure that nothing is a mistake, right? There's no mistake in that. Sunday, so I guess that was just yesterday, wasn't it? That meditation.
Yes, it was. It
I'm
feels like
starting to sweat.
feels longer ago than that, but are
It
you
does.
really? Sorry.
Yes.
You're
My
doing good.
palms,
You
my
are doing
palms are,
great.
thank you, sister.
You're doing awesome, and you're doing it.
I was told to go in, I'm going to start crying, to go into the vibration of vulnerable strength. That vulnerability, true vulnerability is not painful and it's not fear-based. That there's strength in it. Once you have let the light in and you show everything, you get behind the shadows and you light everything up, there's no room for anyone to hurt you in that.
None.
You are standing so completely in your strength at that moment. There is no stronger moment for you than when you can stand there completely raw. Everything about you is lit up. There's nowhere to hide. And there's also nothing to poke at. But that's such a strong place. And so spirit is really guiding me to stand in that place of vulnerable strength. And I also want to say that I have done a lot of healing in my life. I have healed so many wounds, so much trauma. And now when the wound like this, so the wounding comes a little differently after you've done so much of the work. This isn't as painful as I think it's going to be, if that makes sense. I think you might be able to explain that, Mari-Lyn, better than me. But also, we're never done. We're never done moving forward. And so I guess what's coming to me now, this is what I'm sort of channeling. We're both in our channel and we're channeling away. What's coming now is the hardest work that I have had to do, I've already done. So you spent the first part of your life getting your butt kicked and getting traumatized and got wounded. Then you lived with all of that for years and years. And then you come to the place where you begin to heal it all. And it's painful. It is no picnic coming into your wounding, looking at your stuff, taking responsibility, being accountable, looking in that mirror, getting that clarity, doing all that is painful. All very worth it. I would do it all again.
It is painful and it is worth it. But I'm going to say for the second time, it is not as painful as we think it's going to be.
Yes. Agreed. The fear is
the fear and the avoidance.
Yeah.
of not facing it and that anticipation
Yes.
is so much worse than the painfulness of actually looking at it
Yes.
and going through that healing
Yes.
process.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I still have more to heal. This is some trauma here that I'm going to heal. However, what's being shown to me is the true, not true, but I've healed most. So what I am avoiding, I have healed most of, is what I'm getting. I have healed most of that. I have never said this. I mean, people close to me know this, whatever. I mean, people know this, but certainly not on air. This is a very vulnerable thing to say. Um, my mother had what used to be called Munchausen by proxy, and I was her proxy. It's now called fictitious disorder by proxy, I believe. Um, and that was extremely traumatizing in many ways. So, for those of you who don't know what that is, it's when a person, they either, so just plain fictitious disorder or Munchausen disorder is when it goes past being a hypochondriac. It goes to creating, um, creating illness within yourself, and then you go to the doctor, the hospital, whatever it is, and there's a continual thing. Doctors can never figure out what's going on, etc. Well, by proxy means that the person uses a proxy. I was that proxy that my mother used. So for a lot of years, most of my wee childhood, under 10, most of that childhood was being taken to this doctor and that doctor, and she has this wrong with her and that wrong with her, and I was forced to say that yes, this is the stuff that happened to me. If I did not, the wrath of my mother was worse. And plus, when you're a child, you trust. There's that weird thing. It's you know what's wrong, but this is your mother telling you that you're sick.
Sure.
This is your mother telling you that you need to tell the doctor this, and you need to. So most of my trauma comes from that. There was other traumas in the home as well. One of my biggest I don't know what you call it, fears or whatever that came from that. My personal safety was a huge issue for most of my life, which is weird because because spiritually in the paranormal, give me an entity any day over a person. People scare the hell out of me, but ghosts don't. So, anyway, I needed to start that process of saying that, so I appreciate everyone listening to that. I don't know how much further I can go with that today, but and that actually wasn't the hugely vulnerable part, but that was the sort of the lid on it, or the container. That was the part that I could say that happened to me.
Yeah.
But coming out, go ahead.
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit about that not being the most vulnerable part, because that was the beginning. And you can't get more vulnerable than the first time.
No, that's true.
You really cannot.
Right.
And
yeah.
You stood in that vulnerable strength, and you stood in your dignity, and you expressed it quite beautifully.
Thank you. So being a victim has always was. I think I've gotten over that hump for the most part, but being a victim was always very easy for me. As you can see why. That would be the reason I could be a victim. Super easy. Not like a victim like people taking advantage of me, like me just going into victim mode. Me being able to be in that energy of I'm a victim, nothing's going right, this is horrible, I don't deserve better, very low self-esteem. Um, that all yeah. So um whew, okay. So vulnerability.
Vulnerability. What a beautiful example
Yes.
of real vulnerability, and vulnerability for your highest good.
Yes.
Not only for your highest good,
Yes.
but for others,
Yes.
for their highest good as well. Because who knows how many people might be hearing this and go, oh, wow,
Yeah.
maybe I'm not the only one.
No. And it doesn't have to take you down. It doesn't have to keep you from living. It doesn't have to um, dictate who you are, or that's not who I am. I am not that young girl who was victimized by her mother and all the other things. I didn't even touch on the family dynamic and what the traumas that came from that. I had a very scary childhood. And I'm here to tell those of you who have also had scary childhoods, whether, oh, here's another piece too, trauma,
Yeah.
not comparing traumas. So I want to talk about not comparing traumas, but I first want to say for those of you who have had all that trauma, you can get over it. You can heal it. You can move through it. And believe me, being on the other side of it is amazing. Just because I can't talk about it doesn't mean that I haven't healed it. That's just a portion of it.
Right.
Like I've done a lot of deep healing. I have forgiven my mother. That's huge.
Yes.
And that just happened quite recently. She died, I don't know how many years ago. Can tell I'm not super broke up about that. It was actually, I have a better relationship with her today than I ever did in life. Part of it is her mental illness would not allow her to have conversations, to admit it, to talk about what happened. There was never that closure with her when she was alive. It just wasn't possible. And then, of course, the dementia toward the end, then you knew it was like, oh yeah, I'm never getting anything from this woman. So most of my healing was done after her death.
Yeah.
And so not sure where I was going with that, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. For those of you who shouldn't even say that. We've all been traumatized.
We have all been traumatized.
Every one of us. It does look different for everyone. It does look different. Even my siblings, all 6 of us, we don't all have the same trauma, and we all grew up in the same home.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
We have certainly some similarities in some places where it crosses, and yeah, because they all lived with the same mother and the same father.
Yeah.
But
so you had mentioned comparing traumas.
Yes.
So you grew up, you said, with an alcoholic mother and an alcoholic father.
Mm-hmm.
I did not.
Right.
I grew up in a pretty, what I still consider to be a pretty normal, lower middle class family.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I did not have a mentally ill mother.
Right.
And yet I have had just as much trauma and wounding
yep.
to heal and to overcome
as me and as everyone else.
I do remember at one point, at least thinking, and I think we had this conversation where
I know where you're going, and yes, we have had that conversation.
I never had anything like that. I need to get over myself.
Yes.
Because I don't know how I would have survived anything like that.
So hearing my story, she was like, oh, well, I'm going to stop feeling sorry for myself, or stop. I shouldn't even, there was a, I shouldn't even,
I
I
shouldn't even.
have the right to be upset over, like, I
Exactly.
don't have the right. It's like, yes, you do. Yeah. And there are people whom I can look at and say, oh my gosh, I don't have the right to feel bad or whatever. Like, your traumas are far worse than everyone. You can always do that. You can always find someone that you think has had a worse time
Yes.
or didn't have, there's always that judgment there. It's judging and comparing traumas. um, and don't no longer, I don't see that anymore. I see everyone is having really equal traumas. It just looked different.
It looks different.
Different.
And that's because our lessons are different.
Yes. Yes.
Um, our spiritual histories are
Yes.
different.
Yes. Yes.
And there's no comparing.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
Pam and I could both have a cut on our finger,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Same cut by the same knife,
Right.
identical depth.
Right.
They are not going to heal the same. They're not going to bleed.
Beautiful.
They're not going to bleed the same. They're not going to feel the same. They're not
That's
going
what I
to.
was just going to say. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. We're all individuals. We're all different.
We
Yes.
are so different. We could even have, one of us could have a small cut and the other one have a big gash,
Mm-hmm.
and the small cut gets infected.
Right. Yes. Yes.
And the big cut, well, okay, it got stitched up and healed, and okay, move on.
Yeah.
Does that mean just because one of us had a little cut and the other one had a big cut that the big cut was worse?
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
There's too many factors.
And that little cut could have affected the person just as traumatizing as the other person with the bigger cut.
Yes.
It's all part of who we are and the makeup and what we've been through and what we've come to learn. And it's all in that individual experience. And something that also comes through too, we don't talk about past lives a lot. Do we believe them? Yep. They're more of, I don't know how past they are, but that's the way we see them in 3D, right? We see them as this linear thing. We have all had some really horrific lives. We've also had lives that just sort of on the outside looking in don't seem as horrific. And so the compassion that you have for another person, for me, the compassion I have, we're all, how do I explain this? It's, everything comes together in this. So everything I've been through and even my past lives and everything have all come together in this life, and it's what I'm learning. And you don't know where I've been and what I've done and what's really going on and what I'm here to learn. I'm not sure. I don't know why Spirit took me down that path. There's something with vulnerability in there, though, because I pulled back. So I'm just going to say that. Vulnerability came in and I went, fear, 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 danger, danger. Don't go there. Don't go there. Feeling something. But there's something with that.
Okay.
Also with past lives, I want to say, because we get many emails and people asking us can about their past lives and can they heal them, and they think this is due to a past life or whatever. So let's talk a minute about that, just because I don't want to bypass, but that did come up, and I think it's important when it comes to comparing traumas and etc. And if your life today is what matters, those past lives, what will bleed through into this life, are lessons that you have not learned. We don't go back and heal those lives. We heal this life today. And when we heal this life, there's a ripple effect of all the other lives that we've had. And it rolls in there together and it heals. So I just wanted to say that because that does come up a lot.
It does. It does. I want to go back to a minute for a minute.
I tried hard to get away from that.
Well, I know you did, but
and I say that in jest, you know that I it's good to go here. This is what we do, by the way, for those of you, we have these conversations and this is how, what a beautiful friend and true sister that I have sitting here today is because she doesn't let me get away with turning away from it or walking away. And I'm always so grateful for you. And I'm starting to cry because I know you're going somewhere I don't want to go.
Oh,
I know I have to go there.
Well, maybe I am. Maybe I am. And I wasn't going to, when I made the decision, oh no, she's moved on. I'm not going to go back. My team came in and just about knocked me off my chair.
Yeah. Because I need to go there.
So in that comparing of trauma, one of the very important factors is who was on the other end of that trauma. In those cuts that I was talking about, who made the big gash and who made that little tiny cut? You know, that big gash may have been traumatic, but it may have been a total accident. That little tiny cut may have been someone who was so close to you and someone that you trusted, and they maliciously and with the intent of malice, they cut you to hurt you.
Yes.
So the person on the other end of the wounding and of the trauma is, I think, sometimes overlooked. Yeah, go ahead.
Also through my healing. So yes, my mother, that was intentional. What she did was intentional. It was all about her. It was all about her being seen, her feeling like she was needed, whatever it was. I didn't go a huge amount into her shit because that's hers. I really didn't. I tried to stay with, how did this affect me? What do I, so she meant to do all those things to me. That was very purposeful. I was just a pawn for her to play with, for her to get whatever it is. And it was extremely traumatizing to me. And I don't know now why I went there, but there was a reason, something with that, that you were saying. And this is, for all of you watching, this is part of the process of healing and stepping into that.
Yeah.
And you're watching it happen right now in real time. This is part of, so the wounding for me is being vulnerable. And I learned at a very early age to turn away from that, to not look at it, to not feel it, to put up those walls. And so that's what I'm battling right now, is I want to do that right now with Mari-Lyn. And even though I can tell myself, don't do it, this is that piece that you need to heal. There's still that, it's very much a habit, because most of that wounding is done, gone. That trauma, I have healed it. I've cleared it away.
Yep.
But the habit is still there of saying, nope, not going there.
Yeah.
So that's something with more talk and energy healing. So after this, sorry, we're not going to do an energy healing here on air. Someday maybe we'll do something like that, but right now we're not going to.
We might, yeah.
Yeah. But there will be definitely a big energy healing, excuse me, after this podcast today, for me to help break those walls down so I can right now it doesn't feel like a choice. Right now I don't feel like I have a choice to turn away or not turn away. Those walls come up and I'm right there. So what energy healing will do is remove that energy of feeling remove the possibility that it's not a choice. So energy healing can give me that choice. I'm not sure if I'm explaining that right, but
Yes. It takes away the concreteness.
ooh, I like that. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and I think for me, the importance in that, you know, that analogy, okay, was that an accident or was that done maliciously?
Mhm.
And, you know, there's every variance in between there when we're wounded. But for me, in the healing part,
Mhm.
it is important for me to know as much as I can about the why.
Mhm.
Why did this person hurt me?
Right.
Did they intend to hurt me?
Mhm.
Or did I grab onto what they said
Mhm.
through my ego
Mhm.
and really make a bigger wound than
Right.
what was necessary?
So for me, I was not really pervy to the why because of my mother's mental illness.
Sure.
Um, what got me through the healing of it, the healing of the trauma of it, is I chose that. I chose to be in this lifetime with this soul who has been in many of
Right.
who has been my torturer in many lifetimes, I might add. So why I keep incarnating with this person because she knows how to hurt me.
And there was something you hadn't healed yet.
Yes. Yes. There was karma between she and I.
Yes.
That's where karma, that's the real sort of definition of karma.
Excuse me.
There's karma between she and I. We had contracts not fulfilled in other lifetimes, so we came in again to do that. And I believe we have this time. I believe we have this time. But it didn't happen till after she's in spirit now. And I even as a medium, I did not let her in for a long time. She would I would go to heal something and she'd come in to help and I'd be like, "Oh, yeah, like total like no, you're leave." And she would go because that's what they do. Those higher vibrational beings yeah, I'd be like, "No, Mari-Lyn knows. Yeah, she's coming to feed." And I'm like, "Yeah." And now I don't. Now I don't. Now I don't do that.
Oh.
She can come in and I'm fine with her being here. But sometimes you won't have a chance to know the why. And you just have to be okay with that and
Yes.
realize, okay, I have to do that with just me. How it felt, what I did. I think the hardest part, maybe not the hardest, but a piece of that healing is saying, okay, through my pain and my trauma, I turned around and hurt other people. I was not, here's something, this is a very vulnerable piece for me too, and I'm going to say it because I have Fred standing behind me like, you're gonna say it. Through I think from probably 12 years old to maybe 20 years old, through those years, I was a very mean and cruel person. There, I said it. There was still part of me that was very kind and loving, that I still had that healer part of me. So if you were deemed in my mind as being someone who was worthy of my compassion and my love, I gave that to you. Yet as soon as you did something below my expectations of what I expected back from you, or, whatever circumstance. I was not a kind person. And it could even be physical. I physically beat up several people. I did. I got in fist fights, and I hurt one person quite a bit. And healing that was really hard, knowing that, as they say, hurt people, and I did. And that, I think, was one of the harder parts of healing, was saying, okay, I did these things in response to my pain, but that was my choice. That was still my choice. I did not have to do that. That's how I chose to then express my pain.
Right.
And that's all part of healing as well. It's all
Do you
part
know
of
what? Do you know what I realized as you were talking about that? In those years, through those teen years, 12 to 20, I think that's probably accurate for me. That is when I learned to be codependent to a T.
Those are prime, how is your wounding expressing itself years?
Yes.
And how do I keep myself safe? And how do I express it? Those years are big uns. Woo! Biggie.
Yeah. Whew, that was a big realization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that makes
Interesting.
perfect sense.
Very interesting. It's
Yeah.
so grateful I've done so much healing around
Yes.
codependency.
Yes.
Yes.
And there's a lot more to what I did during that time, and how I expressed myself, and the wounding that so you get wounded, and then you're just trying to figure it out. And those years are so rough. Those are rough years. And then in those years, you learn how to get your needs met. That's what I wanted to say. So that would be a codependent. That's how when you just sort of leaned right into the codependence.
Yep.
Because you were trying to get your needs met.
Yeah.
And I tried to get my needs met, and otherwise, there's still some codependence there. I was raised by alcoholics. You're going to have, and my mother being mentally ill and a narcissist and whatever, I'm going to have some codependence. There's no way around that. But now that you say that, yeah, I see where that formed, where you are learning from the outside world, outside of your family, even outside of your family, how to get your needs met.
Yes.
Wow, that's a huge revelation for me right there.
Yeah.
Those years are when you look outside your family to get your needs met. Wow. I hope some people listening to this are ding, 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 like you hear it.
I hope so.
Or the light bulbs going off.
Yeah.
Those are some rough years. Those very necessary, extremely necessary, meant to happen. Yeah. Really meant to happen.
Yes.
Yeah. And then some of us even go, and then you take that, how you learn to use the outside world, and then that propels you for the next couple, whatever.
That takes you into adulthood.
Yes. Yes.
And then you have to figure out how to take all that and be an adult.
Yes. Yes. This is not for the faint of heart, man.
Being human is hard, man.
It's hard. It's hard.
It's hard. I've heard people say it shouldn't be this hard. Well, damn it is hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are here to learn. Well, first of all, we're here to learn self-love.
Yes.
After getting our asses handed to us.
Yes.
Yes. And it is hard.
Yes. And that's also why I've said this, and I know I think those younger years is a really great time for talk therapy, for sort of learning to sort of untangle a little bit and see more clearly. what happened to you and how that affected you, and now how you're getting your needs met and everything. And then in your 40s, 50s, that spiritual journey, the energy healing and everything really comes into play in a beautiful way. A beautiful way, and opening up to your
Yeah.
gifts and etc. Some people start certainly a little bit younger. I would even say 30s for some people. I was still doing the talk therapy and whatever thing in my 30s. But yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a hell of a ride, but it's worth it. And I can tell you all, even though I showed you my vulnerable side and I told you about my wounding and the trauma, I told you some of it, not all of it, but y'all get the gist. I am so very grateful to who I am today and where I stand today. Yes. And as a healer, I can truly connect with people who have trauma in their life, that wounding.
Yes.
As can Mari-Lyn.
Yes.
We've been there. We've gotten real about it. We've healed a bunch of stuff. And that's how we can now turn around and help others. And that's a big piece of who we both are, really. And who many of you are listening. Yeah. Whew.
Yeah. And vulnerability plays a huge part in being a healer.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And there is a difference. I'm going to say this because you and I have talked about this a lot. So if I think back, like in my 20s, started going to therapy and whatever, and I could tell you what happened in my childhood. I could be yep, this is what happened. These are all the things that everyone did, whatever, blah, da, 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 da. Just that's the first step, is to be able to sort of see it. But and some of you might get upset when I say this, but you're not healing yet. Just because you can say it and you recognize it, that's not healing.
No, it's not.
That's not healing. That's
first step.
Yeah.
Absolutely first step.
It's a really low, it's like step 0. It's really not, because you're still trying to get your needs met. You're still figuring it out. You're just starting very lightly to put those pieces together. And I say this not only from my experience, but I've had so many clients who the same thing. So I can really tell you those different decades mean different things in your healing process. But knowing it, please know that being able to say it and see it is part of it, but that's the first step. You haven't yet dug into it yet. Unfortunately, some of you, all of us, whatever. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, but there was something about that I needed to say. So maybe someone out there needed to hear that piece.
I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did, because there is, well, just from life experience has shown me, people think if you can talk about a traumatic experience without emotion, that they've healed it. They're over it. They've let it go.
Yep.
And that is not true. And there is more to it.
Yes. And being an addict, being an alcoholic, there's more to it than just being able to say, I am an alcoholic.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
There's a lot more to that. There's a reason that you are. Yes. There's a lot of trauma and healing in there to be healed. So I sort of put that on the same, do I think it's beautiful that you recognize that? Absolutely. absolutely. But there's more to be done. And there's more to be done. And I'm not going to say but, and because it's
And
really a beautiful thing. The process of healing hurts
Mhm,
like hell, but it is so worth it.
mhm.
So worth it.
It is so worth it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I, yes, was um both my parents were alcoholics. You've heard me talk about my dad. He was in World War II, PTSD. It was rough. Always the super kindest man you'd ever meet. Just super super kind. But I have siblings. I mean, the addiction runs through my family like crazy. It's all there. I did not, for whatever reason, in this lifetime, choose to be an addict in that way or an alcoholic, whichever. Um, and so I just see it as funny. So here I come from having two alcoholic parents and not being an alcoholic. You come from not having that and being an alcoholic. It's like flipped, but it just
Yeah.
shows you.
And there was as a child,
Mhm,
there wasn't even alcohol
in the
in
house,
the home.
right?
Um,
Yeah,
I mean, at least not on a regular basis,
right.
you know.
Yes. What might be considered to be normal? Oh, it's normal to have a beer on occasion, or friends are coming over, so they open a bottle of wine or whatever. But maybe
Yeah, but it was rare. It was
yeah,
so rare to
yeah.
have anything.
In my life, it was every weekend,
Yeah.
big parties and drunk people everywhere. Yeah, just fascinating to me. Um, there's no straight road to the answer, or to that goes
No.
also to not judging yourself against other people and what they went through. Um,
Yeah.
because it's different for every one of us. This road, this spiritual journey, and that's all part of the spiritual journey, by the way.
Sure.
And it looks different for every one of us. The road is different. It looks different. It smells different. It's everything. And yeah. Whew. I don't know if I expected that today. Yes.
Well,
Wow.
good job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nicely
That was,
done.
and yeah, that was yeah, that was the beginning of something for, and again, I want to say vulnerability is that unhealed vulnerability. Woof. There's a term. That unhealed vulnerability, or that the fear of vulnerability. That's what needs to be healed, not the reason that I became so vulnerable. That's all been healed. So I started at the bottom and is slowly working my way up as far as healing. Um, yeah, and yeah. So it's the that's what I need to heal, is that unhealed vulnerability, or the vulnerability fear, that fear of being vulnerable. That's what needs to be healed.
The fear of being vulnerable.
Yes.
When you
Yes.
said unhealed vulnerability, what came to my mind
Yeah.
was how I used to use vulnerability for my detriment.
Yes. Yes. Yes, you did.
Yes, I did.
Yes. And not that, and for all of you listening, not necessarily that I saw it, but we've done lots of healing together. There's not much that we don't know about each other. There really isn't.
Mm-mm, I
Um,
don't think so.
and I also want to say this too. um, when it comes to family, Mari-Lyn and I have had many conversations lately about what is family. I don't have a relationship with anyone in my family. And I mean, siblings. I have an amazing husband, beautiful children, and my beautiful grandson and my daughter-in-law. So that's my family. But I have two sisters that I have zero contact with, probably will never. I don't know. I don't know what's coming, but they're not healed. I'm on this journey to heal. Mari-Lyn is my true sister. And we've talked about this. Mari-Lyn is my true sister. And once I started looking at it that way, it was like, oh, so I do have the family I always wanted. I do have this amazing sister that I get to share everything with. I always wanted that. And I didn't have it with biological siblings, but I do with Mari-Lyn. So it's worth taking a look at your life and reevaluate, or looking at it with a different perspective. Get rid of the expectations of what a family is supposed to look like. Both Mari-Lyn and I created the family that we wanted. And we didn't even realize we did that. We really didn't until we started having those conversations. And that doesn't mean, I mean, I think it's wonderful if you have siblings that you love and honor and have a beautiful relationship with. I think that's wonderful. But I think there's also a lot of people that just think they have to because it's their blood. And that I don't agree with, but that's another podcast.
Yeah. I have two sisters. One is no longer living, and the other, I mean, we live on opposite sides of the river. We're very far away. She has her life. I have my life, and they just don't intertwine unless it's around our father.
Right.
Who is still living. And I never had children. And I had a lot of healing to do around that. And I have children.
Yes, you do.
I mean, they aren't mine biologically. But I do feel like I have children and grandchildren. And
you do.
And I never even, it's so sad. And I'm not beating myself up, Pam.
No, I know you're not.
But it's so sad that we can get so caught up in our own grief, I'm going to say. Our own grief, that we don't see how someone else sees us.
Yes.
Yeah. You have a 15-year-old say, I can't wait for you to get here. And I want you to meet my friends.
Yes.
That just, what 15-year-old does that if they don't want anything to do with you?
Right. And we've talked about it. I mean, those of you who've been watching us for a while, especially the paranormal stuff, you see how mushy-gushy mommy she is. She's way more than I am. And I have biological children and she doesn't. That doesn't mean she's not a mom. It doesn't. And it doesn't mean that I'm whatever. I don't know. I'm a good mom. I'm a good mom. I'm just not, although if you saw me with my grandson, you would say, oh, Pam, you are so mushy. I am with little ones. Can't help it.
Babies are different.
Yes, they are so different.
They're on a different level.
And he's the cutest baby ever. So he's 10 months old and absolutely adorable. Has my heart. Anyway.
He is the cutest baby ever since,
Right. At the moment, the cutest 10-month-old that we know.
Yes.
Is him. Yes.
Oh, shit.
So I think that's something. Look at your life. See what you have. When you look at family, start to try to look at it with a little different perspective. Who do you want? Who have you chosen to be in your life? And who is just there because you think they have to be? Yeah. I'm going to leave that there. That's a whole nother conversation.
It is. But I want to add to that. And I want to add to that. that those people that you want to create a family with,
Mhm.
it takes a little bit of vulnerability to go a long way.
Yes.
And someone has to start.
Yes.
Someone has to be vulnerable
Mhm.
and open up to allow the next person to be
Yes.
vulnerable to open up. And then you can spread that and become vulnerable together. And that's how family
Yes.
bonds.
And we don't have to, I think we all do it. There's an expectation of what it's supposed to look like. We need to get rid of that expectation of what it's supposed to look like.
Yes.
Yes. And lean in. Yeah. Whew. I think that feels like a good place to stop. What
I
about?
think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we want to thank everyone. Um, yeah, for tuning in.
Yes. Thank you. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope
Yes,
this was
yes,
thought provoking. We hope
yes,
there were some things in there that you went, yes,
yes,
yes, yes.
yes.
I'm sure there's a few things in here that made you go, no, 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 no,
Oh,
no.
I can edit that out. I won't be editing anything out, but there, yeah. Yeah, and thank all of you listening because I can feel the energy of the people listening.
Right?
I appreciate
Yeah.
you allowing me to get vulnerable. That's very helpful to me and helping me start down that path of healing that fear. It's just the fear. There's
It
there's
is
nothing there's
fear.
nothing. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
all it
I
is.
want to thank you, Pam, for being vulnerable and going there,
Ugh,
because I know how hard it is.
yeah,
I know how hard it was for you.
yeah.
And I am very proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
sister.
Yeah. You
Woo,
did right by yourself.
thank you. Something to be proud of. I can
You
be proud
did.
of that.
Absolutely.
I can be
Absolutely.
proud of that and not revisit that for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
until,
Yeah. I just
until
said, yeah. I just agreed with that. What the heck? She just tricked me.
I did, but you recovered, damn you. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Well,
Thank you
you
so much.
can find us at tcseverydaypsychics.com and theconsciousspirit.net.
Yes. And find out all about us, the services we provide. Whether you decide to, contact us for a service or not, we are just so happy that you're here. We're just we have the best community. We really do.
We do.
We're grateful for all of you and thank you so much for tuning in. Yeah.
Yes.
See you next time.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.